On this episode, we discuss a commonly seen headline these days: Russians invade Phuket.
So if you've wondered what the massive influx of Russians to Phuket means financially as well as culturally, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 solely because my high school yearbook, Miss McDonald, wrote, "Blaze your own path," so I did. Thanks, Miss McDonald.
Blame it all on her.
That's right.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 24 years ago. Fell in love with explaining to Thai people that John Denver's Country Roads is not actually the peak of American music, so I never left.
I just have one question. What the hell are you talking about? That is a great song.
Well, let's just say it's a good song, but it does not deserve the praise it gets in Thailand. And apparently all of Asia. Apparently all of Asia loves that song.
It does really, really capture a sort of a geographic, cultural snapshot like very few other songs do. It's really, really good.
Well, we did do a show trying to explain why certain songs are popular in Thailand, and we never really came up with a great answer. Country Roads is so sentimental. I think that's part of it. Thai people are very sentimental, I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Must be it. All right, I want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about the Oscars and why Thai movie audiences don't get as rowdy as audiences back home, an update on the screening of the film Dream that I went to last weekend, and a discussion on why Thai history is generally not taught in international schools in Thailand. Spoiler, too much honesty is sometimes a bad thing. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
That's right. And don't forget, you can leave us a voicemail. You can give us a show idea. Just want to say hi. Head to BangkokPodcast.com. Click the little microphone button on the bottom right to leave us a voicemail that we'll play on the show. Alrighty then. Well, on this episode, we want to talk about something that's been in the news lately. Now, if you've seen any headlines about southern Thailand, specifically Phuket, you've probably seen the words Russian invasion several times.
That's right.
Now, while we think that particular word may be a bit of overkill, there's no denying that Phuket, as well as other places in Thailand, have seen a massive increase in long-term Russian expats, especially in the wake of the war with Ukraine. Now, Ed and I both have Russian friends and acquaintances, even some listeners of the show. Shout out to Maria and Nikki, who are all lovely people. But questions are being asked of how much is too much. That also got us thinking, what is the national breaking point of Thai culture? When do things go from welcome to Thailand to, oh my God, everyone here is Russian, or whatever nationality in particular you want to fill in the blank with? So we thought this would be an interesting discussion. And, kicking it off, I want to say that one of the things that often pokes its head up in Reddit boards and discussions, and often sitting around the table at a pub or something like that about foreigners living in Thailand, is that we are tolerated but not loved or welcomed, or something, some variation thereof.
Right.
So yeah, I think Thai culture is very welcoming of foreigners, but like with anything, there must be a breaking point somewhere.
For sure. I think this is a complicated question. I have talked to my students in class before about how Thailand's identity is not multicultural. I think almost every country in the world is in fact multicultural, but it doesn't mean it's part of your identity. So Thai people don't think of Thailand as a place for people of all races and all colors. That's just not part of their right. idea. That they don't have the same rainbow that some Western countries have. But the other flip side is, of course, Thai people are famously warm and welcoming, at least to tourists. But remember how I'm not an expert on Ayutthaya, but wasn't Ayutthaya famous for having a Dutch community and a Portuguese community? So there were Farang enclaves going back a couple hundred years, right?
Yeah, I think there was. And even back after Ayutthaya, when they came down to Bangkok and settled the new capital, there was the Portuguese community, there was Curichin, where the Santa Cruz church is, and there was the French community, So there's definitely been little pockets of expats going back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, they were bubbles in a sort of figurative sense as well as almost a physical sense. It was like, oh, over there, that's where you live. So it sort of crosses that barrier between like just saying it and then actually making it so physically. So
Well, one of my old jokes when I first was reading about Thai history, and I learned that there were Portuguese here in the 1500s, is I used to ask my Thai friends, like, where are the white Thai people? Kon Thai Kao. Like if there's been white people here for so long, how come there are no white Thai people?
That's interesting.
And the truth is that Thailand has been, what's the right word? The bottom line is Thailand is accepting of foreigners living here, but foreigners don't really assimilate. Obviously, there are mixed marriages. I'm not talking about that, but they essentially these communities of, let's just focus on Westerners for now. These communities of Westerners, they never grow. If there were Portuguese or French here 400 years ago, why is 20% of the population not white? Is my question. So there's something going on. There's something going on where Thailand absorbs this type of foreign influence, but it somehow still stays fairly racially homogenous. So I don't know how that works. I've said before on the show, I'm not really an expert on culture, but there are, and of course there are a few white. I'm just going to say white. There's a few white Thai people, like a handful, right?
Right.
But there's no community of people like that. But there are these. I guess there are these foreign communities. So to me, it's fascinating that there are so many Russians in Phuket now. I mean, obviously, it's not only Russians. I'm sure there's Ukrainians, but also other Eastern Europeans, and the whole region is pretty unstable. But I think it's fascinating that the Thai people, because they're so open to tourists, they have to adapt to these types of trends. There might be a period of time where, like, who knows, 10 years ago, maybe it was Swedish people. So there's just tons. There's tons of Swedes, and so Thai people have to adapt, and maybe learn a little bit of Swedish, and the hotel staff have to learn Swedish. And now it's Russian or Ukrainian, or at least Russian language speakers. And so now Thai people have to figure out how to adapt to that.
But I doubt there was any previous headlines of like Swedish invasion, unless it was ABBA, But
well, I don't know. Maybe there was. I mean, no, this seems unique. I mean, I think the war is a unique thing, and I want to give some credit to this article in the Sun, or I'm sorry, not the Sun, in this e-paper called The Star. And I don't know anything about it. It just has a Malaysian URL, so it must be like a Malaysian paper. I don't know anything about it.
Right.
But it's, the article just came out a few days ago, and it's called "A Russian Invasion of Phuket," and this is kind of what sparked the show, and how, and it basically in the article it says the people have been joking that Phuket is people are starting to call Phuket Little Moscow. And the story, which we'll include the link to the story just to give full credit, it does a good job of going through pros and cons. One pro is just that obviously Thai people want tourism, and they want, even long-staying tourists means more income. So right now the economy in Phuket is exploding. There's just this massive influx of rubles, I guess. And so on the one hand, so this is just great for business. Okay, so we'll go back and forth, good and bad. But the flip side of that means that purchase and rental prices have apparently just skyrocketed. So if you want to buy a condo in Phuket now, you're going to be paying maybe double what it was 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And apparently that has put pressure on the rental market. So there's just high demand now, and it's just packed. So yeah, so financially, it's going to cost you more to live there for sure.
Yeah, and your mention of the ruble just gave me a interesting idea for the title of this episode. How about Ruble in the Jungle?
That's pretty. That's pretty funny, actually.
Esoteric. One angle that I'm interested in looking at this from is that Thai people are known as being sort of chilled and laid back. Nickname is a land of smiles.
Sure.
While Russians are sort of known as being stoic and almost grim sometimes.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, it is true. The image, although we're generalizing about like millions and millions of people, but you're right. The image of Russians, or even just Eastern Europeans, this is kind of an American cliche. We think of them as kind of serious and grim. I think it's like a leftover of the Cold War. Eastern Europeans are grim and serious.
maybe. Except Yakov Smirnov, he was the one great Russian comedian. But I think, when you see, there's Russian gangsters are tough and
that's right. No,
they've got a reputation as being badasses.
For sure. Yeah. You're right. We're dealing with cliches here. We're dealing with stereotypes. Yeah. But you're right. Like the stereotypical Thai person is very different from the stereotypical Russian. That is totally true.
Right. And of course, we know dickhead Thai people, and of course we know lovely, warm, friendly, funny Russian people too. So it's
of course
an oversimplification.
This is actually very interesting. I didn't know how this conversation was going to go, but this is actually a totally interesting angle. I wonder if, and of course this is generalizations, but I wonder if there are just certain types of people. I never thought about this before from a Thai person's perspective. For example, do Thai people just get along with Irish people because Irish people are friendly, or are there? I wonder if Thai people think of Russians as serious people. I have no idea, because I think I think it's a little bit of a American or Canadian cliche that or I'm not sure. I don't know. I really don't know. But you're right. In a way, Russians and Thai people. I mean, it's funny talking in like this, but they do seem to be quite different.
But I remember I used to work with a Russian guy, and he was, until you got to know him, you thought he didn't like you. Because you'd look at a talk with you, and he'd be like, yes, okay. And he's very serious. And
right.
You'd say a joke, and he'd look at you right in your eyes, and he'd be like, that's funny. But then once you got to know him, he was so funny. But it's just, unless they let you in.
Russians are also, they do have a reputation of being kind of fatalistic and almost pessimistic, whereas Thai people are just cheery. They're like puppy. They have like that puppy personality. They're kind of just warm and cheerful all the time.
Puppy personality.
Since we're generalizing.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, we should have started the show off with this, but neither you or I are social scientists or have any formal training.
Well, actually, I am supposed to be a social scientist, to be honest. But I do politics. Really? Yeah, I don't do culture. So this is pure speculation. I want to get back to positive or negative effects on Phuket. So I mentioned like crowded housing market, but apparently because there's so many Russians there now who need services in Russian. Now you have more Russians who are illegally working, providing services for all the Russians. So
right.
You have Russians setting up travel agencies, or even an article I read said that there was even a massage shop, as if there's not enough massage shops. But some Russians opened a massage shop so the clientele could talk to the workers there or something. I don't know. And that Thailand has a huge, basically a huge legal red line in terms of jobs you're allowed to work or not work as a foreigner.
Yeah, sure.
So apparently there's been a crackdown and kind of conflict in Phuket over this.
Now it's interesting because we're obviously using Russian here because there's all these headlines are talking about the invasion and blah blah blah, and it's in the news. But you could probably substitute any nationality, and I think when any big disruption of the norm happens in Thailand, right. It does get to a point where the authorities sort of have to step in and do
right.
something. And that can be, the opening hours and people getting too rowdy on Sukhumvit of the bars, so they shut the bars down. That could be, alcohol on trains, and there was that terrible incident with that one train worker who got drugged and did something terrible. So they banned all the alcohol on the trains. So something
I don't know,
big enough wave that it causes a snapback, a backlash kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think right now, I think Phuket is kind of just in a state of shock with the number of Russians down there. And I read something else interesting in the article. This problem, which we have mentioned it before as a downside of foreign investment. So you have all this Russian money coming in to Phuket, and some of it is going into businesses and things like that. And so it seems like that would help the local economy, but the article mentioned that a lot of the money is going back out of Thailand. Where it's kind of like it can do with how a business is structured. So some Chinese investors come in, they start a company with some Thai partners, but actually it's somewhat of a sham. And so all the money is leaving Thailand anyway.
Yeah, sure. That happens a lot too. That happened with the $0 tours from China that we saw a few years ago.
That's right.
All these tourists were being brought in with Chinese tour companies at cost and basically not spending any money in Thailand. And again, it became such a problem that the authorities stepped in and had to do something.
Right.
So I am really wondering what the breaking point is. Like you said, the property values are going up, the rents are going up. I actually was talking to a friend of mine who lives in the United States, and he is going to be moving to Thailand in a couple of years with his family, which is great. And he was sort of like, well, maybe we'll go to Phuket, maybe we'll go somewhere else. So I was talking to him and I said, what about Phuket? And he goes, actually, no, we've decided against it because there's just too many Russians down there. Now, He's got nothing against Russians.
Right.
He's a very cool dude and he loves everyone, but that was a factor.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for Thai people. Thai people spend so much time learning English, and they'll say they go into the hotel business or tourism business, and then 1 million Russians show up, who don't speak English or have poor English. So I think Phuket is just going through a transition. To me, it doesn't bother me whatsoever if there's just, areas. I know that a buddy of mine who lives in Rayong, his neighborhood is super Swedish. He was telling me when I went to visit him, he was pointing across the street like Swedish guy, and then we went to a Swedish restaurant. So there are these little pockets, like little bubbles, as you said. So if Phuket becomes a Russian bubble, so be it.
Well, I've never had Russian food. I'd like to try it. So, I mean, I've had potatoes, I've had vodka.
Potatoes and vodka. That's it. It's all, and vodka is potatoes. That's it. It's all potatoes.
I guess so. Potatoes all the way down.
That's great.
Another interesting thing is that I was doing some research just before the show on this, and I looked up I tried to find a lot of stats about immigration to Thailand and long-term expats in Thailand and things like that. And surprisingly, most of it just dealt with neighboring countries. Like a lot of Burmese are here now. So very little of it mentioned anything about European or Western expats. There was a couple of mentions of Russians and how they were sort of upsetting the apple cart in the ways we mentioned, rising property prices and things like that. But I couldn't really find anything specific or academic on it. But I did notice this one line from something I read. And this was from the Thailand Migration Report from 2024. And it said the year 2023 marked a demographic turning point in Thailand where the population aged 20 to 24 years, representing those entering the workforce, was lower than the number of individuals aged 60 to 64 leaving the workforce. Now, there might not be an obvious correlation there, but that does mean that there's a lot less young Thai people going into the tourism business, going into these jobs that support the economy. So maybe they're going to have to look towards, outside labor or something like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, Thailand is one of many countries in Asia that are going through this, demographic crisis. China is one of them. Japan is one of them. The birth rates are low. There's just not enough young people. I'm curious how that's affecting the tourism industry. I don't know.
Right.
My impression, and like I said, I'll include the link to this article, is that Phuket is struggling to deal with all these Russians, and it's a little bit of one of those be careful what you wish for things, because as we've talked about before, the Tourism Authority is all about growth. Like we will just accept everyone who wants to come, and now it's 1 million Russians have shown up in the last year, so now Phuket is just trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to watch. As outsiders ourselves, we kind of might have a limited one-sided view of this thing, but the stats speak for themselves. The Phuket is Thailand's richest province. It's this massive economic cornerstone to Thailand's economy,
For sure.
and so it's
Maybe
interesting
it helps. I was just thinking maybe it helps that Phuket itself is more multicultural. I should have thought of this earlier when we were talking about it, because I don't think Thai people in general have a multicultural identity. But Phuket, we've talked before about Phuket. Phuket has a just fascinating history of Portuguese and Chinese immigrants, and it's a little bit of a weird zone. So maybe that makes it easier for them to absorb Russians.
Yeah, you're right.
It's eclectic. Phuket has always been eclectic.
You're right. And I was just there a few months ago, and it is very multicultural. So I bet that if there was suddenly like a Russian explosion in like Khon Kaen,
oh yeah,
it probably wouldn't go down as
right.
smoothly.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, that is an interesting insight. Well, anyway, we're keeping an eye on it. And again, nothing against Russians or anything like that, but there are a lot of news stories out there that have the headline something invasion of Russian.
Yes. Yeah, we are undergoing a different type of Russian invasion.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there, and I just hope that everyone can be welcome and sort of find their natural level and exist peacefully. But again, once something comes in that disrupts the status quo, usually something is done to get things back to where they used to be. So keep an eye out, I guess.
For sure.
All right, let's do something we call Love, Loathe, or Live With, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or have come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with no matter how we feel about it. This week, Ed, it's your turn. What do you got?
All right, I got a kind of specific thing here. Now, in my opinion, Thai people are not big huggers, but I feel that there is a tendency, I feel it's older Thai people, older men, they sometimes reach out and kind of touch your arm or put their hand on you while they're talking to you. It's odd because, in my opinion, I don't think Thai people are like super touchy-feely, but I do think there is this tendency, which is a little bit more back home, like with people you don't know. I don't think if I was talking to an older guy back home who I didn't know, I don't think he would reach out and put his hand on my arm, but I think this is a Thai thing. So, number one, do you agree that this is a Thai thing? And number two, love, loathe, or live with, does it bug you?
Yeah, it's funny because this just happened the other day. I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was at Pri's wedding, actually.
Oh,
where like I was talking to someone.
So it is a thing. I'm telling you, it is a thing.
It's totally a thing. And again, this older man, he was talking to me, and he was very friendly, and he put his hand on my arm and kept it there.
Ah, right, yeah.
For that's like a minute.
That's it. That's right. And it's clear. It's obviously not. This is just a very pleasant kind of affectionate thing. But again, I don't think it would happen back home. I don't think so.
No, that would be like a personal space thing. I don't love it, but I don't loathe it. I live with it, but it doesn't bother me or offend me in the slightest.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm the same way. This is one of those things that I kind of want to love it because it is just a little affectionate thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of cute, right? So I kind of want to love it, but then I don't know. Maybe because I didn't grow up with it. It's just a little bit weird.
Yeah.
It's foreign to me.
It's like when you have a little baby and the Thai waitress comes over and picks your baby up and walks away with it to show her friends. You're like,
excuse me. Right.
Yeah. So I'm gonna live with on that. I don't mind it, but it is, you do notice it.
All right, I agree. Dual live with.
Dual live with.
All right, a final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
That's right. Also listen to each episode on YouTube. Send us a voicemail, like I said, through our website. We'll feature it on the show. Hit me up on Blue Sky at BKK Greg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Drink lots of water. It's getting hot out there. We got a repeat show next week, but we'll see you back here for a brand new show in 2 weeks.
For sure.
Boom.
Boom, baby.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Dude, you know what that reminds me of? Pi.
What?
Pi actually sings a song on the most recent episode of S7.E Talk, and she actually has a good voice.
Really?
Yeah, well, she sings a song. Apparently, it's a song that helps Thai people remember the southern provinces. It's like a little song where she's singing the provinces, and her voice is actually pretty good.
Oh, like the song that people sing to remember the name of Bangkok.
Yeah, that's right.
Which was actually in the marketing material, the commercial they filmed for Bangkok Pains, the board game that we were playing last episode. The commercial for it has a woman just singing in Thai, and all she's saying is the full name of Bangkok.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Very cool.